All right, good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started with our CEJA reporting system office hours call today. Today we will be going over reports, and our programmers are working on optimizing it and speeding it up. So we may see, I may have to move between a couple different environments to go over those, but. Before we get into that, I'm just checking to see if there are any things I wanted to share update wise. Uh, Not yet, but I think next week we'll be a little closer to some of the updates that we have, rolling out. So I don't think there's anything to share just at the moment on this call, but before we get started, if there are any questions, feel free to add them into the chat or unmute and ask away. All right, well, if not, we can go ahead and get started. If there are any questions that do come up along the way, you can add them into the chat and we'll get them answered. And then also before we close today, we'll um, open it up again to Q&A. Okay, so for reports, the first one that we're going to take a look at is the dashboard report. And let's see, I'm logged in as a ClimateWorks grantee, but to access the dashboard report, once we are logged into the system, we can select this dashboards dropdown from up here and select CEJA. And this will take us to the dashboard report where we'll be able to see a color-coded table of our customers' progress, where they're standing, in the program, based on their status, services that are open or completed, outcomes if they've received a credential or earned a credential, their overall status in the program as well. So if we had access to sub-grantees, when we come here we can just click filter and that will pull back everybody. Otherwise we can let's see, select ClimateWorks and then community partnerships, the parent grantee. Zion College is the sub-grantee, so if we left this as select it would pull back both, but pull back, we'll go ahead and pull back both. And so we'll click filter and it will load this table here. And it's broken up into different sections here. So we have, outreach, that initial, getting them into the system. At the very top, we have respond to transfer requests. It looks like we don't have any at the moment here, but if you received an email that, a grantee or navigator has, submitted a request to transfer, a customer in your list to their list, you'd see them populate in this row here. And so we can also just see, here's how many customers are in an inquiry status that we need to, maybe revisit and proceed with their, intake or send them back to the navigator and so forth. But by and large, green colored rows are, for this section, that means they're good. Yellow and red, following up, and then gray, no action needed. As we can see with the gray ones there for do not contact, and the pre-screening results indicate that they're either not eligible or not interested, or referred to a contract or incubator. And so we have our section for outreach there, our section for intake. And I should note too, we have this, hyperlinked, number here, so we can see here's 85 that have completed the application and are eligible, and here's 8 who are on a wait list. So when we click the hyperlinked number, it's going to pull back that list of customers who are meeting that row's criteria. So we can see that there's the 8 entries here. we're on the wait list there. But then, we can use this as a, good measure of, we don't have the application completed, and here's people who have an application, but it's not been completed within 10 days of being added to the system. So we can see what are the next steps, contact the customer, continue to work with them to complete it. If they don't want to participate, update their status to not enrolled, declined to participate. And that's on the intake page there. But we can see which customers we need to work on and get their information completed so we can get them out of those rows. Then we have our section for referrals, our service statuses, just kind of where they're standing. I do want to note this since it's come up in a few help request tickets recently, but if you see numbers here, customers who have an estimated cost. So we got 3 here. And if we go to our list here, let's select this one here. We'll see on the progress page that I have. Oh, that's a lot. That might a lot of costs that have been entered, but at least one of these. Let me pick another example, and you'll see why I'm going to them instead. Okay, so we can see in this case, this customer's case, that there's based on the service needs assessment, there's been 4 items identified that we would provide in-house. We'd enter the cost, or has the service, or we have another service that meets that criteria here. So we can see that it still needs attention even though these items have been addressed. So if we go to the view edit, we'll open up our services and go to the barrier reduction service where we've entered our cost information. So let's see. Or wraparound, sorry, getting my programs mixed up. So if we open the wraparound support services service here to edit, and we'll go to the dollar value of service tab, and we can see these 2 costs that have been entered. So when we click edit, you can see this one is not a cost estimate. So we'll go to our other one here and see that it is. So this flag over here is yellow because though we've entered the cost for this, we identified that it's an estimate. So in order to make this flag green, we'll need to come back in here and make sure we have the right payment total, cost total here. And when we do, so let's say 425. When we do, we can select no and then save. And then when we come back to our progress page and refresh, we should see the flag turn to green. Yep, there we go. So you can see why with this customer here, I didn't want to potentially click 20 some odd different ones just to find the cost estimate. But so that's what that row in the dashboard is referring to, customers who have an estimated cost. Let's see what else. And then we have our earn credential section, just spelling out which customers have earned which credentials. And then completion information, just kind of where they're standing, or they're still enrolled, in progress. Here's who's completed, exited, withdrawn. And then we have our transition outcomes here. So based on the transition outcomes that we enter on the program completion tab, and different sub selections within that outcome, they'll be, they'll pull through here into this section of the dashboard report. And then our program follow-up, I guess that is an update I do want to provide. We do have a programmer looking at this. The logic is not functioning properly. I know there was some discussion last week about this, but we're looking at this to better identify if better identify if the issues over here, or if it's an issue with the dashboard, or if it's the actual following up. So we'll have more on that the next week or so. But this would be when we do follow up with them after they've been exited or withdrawn. the different intervals when we need to follow up with them. So when it comes time for the 9-month follow-up, here's our list of 7 customers to follow up with to address that. Okay, so that's the dashboard here, and okay, we'll go to our next report. Let's see. So let me go back to our customer list here. Reports. So I'm actually going to go to this reports tab. No, I'll go to the work plan and reports first, actually. So this is where we can enter our project work plan. We've got a lot entered for community partnerships. So let's look at Zion College, and let's look at 2026 since we don't have any project work plan submitted there. So to add one, we will click Submit Project Plan. And we'll fill out the plan here. So we have our grant number. And this number here, this is optional, but just as an FYI, the number, if you do see a number here, this is pulling from the grantee details page. Let's see. Yes, that is the number. If we were to add, the grant information here, which isn't too much, grant number, the date range, and the grant amount, the number that we entered there is what's going to pull through here. And then we have our different drop downs for different staff. So project manager, reporting, fiscal, and other. The names you see here, those are just going to be those who have access to that grantee in the system. So if you don't see them in these drop downs, then they don't have access to it. And if that's the case, just send me an email and we'll get them added. And then here's where we can add the project overview. So we can add that in there. And then in activities outcomes, we can enter our plan numbers for the different rows here for outreach and partnerships, how many applicants, enrolled, completers we anticipate on serving. For characteristics, residents of EJC and or R3 communities, the persons who formerly incarcerated, foster care, members or graduates, and then our outcomes here for apprenticeships, job placements, and other training. And so we can enter our numbers here. Get those in place. Our training programs, this is going to be the summary information of the training programs that are under this provider info icon here. And when we select or filter to it, we can see test program for Zion subgrantee, and that's the program that's pulling through here. And then cohorts, let's see, this is pulling from a different page here. But when we enter our cohorts, this is where they're populating here. I think I might have selected a wrong year when I was looking at this, but oops, I refreshed. Hang on 1 second here. Selections again. Comes. Okay. So we'll click save, and then the project work plan will be submitted. We can see it's not yet approved. If we click this exit button, this will take us back here. When we filter to Zion, we can see the one that we've added here for 610, not approved. But so yeah, that's the the project work plan. And we'll go to this reports tab to look at some of our other reports. And I do see a hand raised. Hi, Jelani.
Hi, David. I wanted to ask before you moved on. This is actually my exact question. So, for work plans, we have our work plan in there for Jira, but it says not approved. But we haven't received like any communication from like our grant manager with any other updates on like what to do. Is there like a specific reason a work plan wouldn't be approved in the reporting system?
I would say to send an email to your regional manager, just to let them know, because we don't have, once it is submitted, there's not really a notification or email that gets directed
Mm,
to them. So I would just say to follow up with them, letting them know
okay.
it's been approved. Yeah, then they can go in and approve it. If they have any questions, they can follow up with you.
Okay, so it may not be that it was denied, it just may not have been looked at.
Right, right.
Okay, okay. Thank you so
Yeah, of
much.
course.
I can also follow up on that as well.
Yeah, I did.
Thank you.
Thanks. So let's see. So now we've gone to reports. We can see some other CEJA reports here. So let's look at the cohort report first. And let's see. So we can look at our cohorts. Let's see. So let's select Climate Works 26, and we'll do community partnership. And we do have a couple other search criteria here. We have cohort type for bridge, job specific, and pre-apprenticeship. And we also have a date range search, but I'm just want to see to make sure. We just click filter here. I might have to change some of this up here. Okay, there we go. So looking at 2025, we can see our cohorts here for community apprenticeship. And we can see the different cohort names, the types that they were, if there's any job specific training in the planned start end dates, and then also the cohort capacity and the number who are actually enrolled in that cohort. And if we click the cohort name, we can see the summary information here. It shows the name, description, the program that it is connected to, the provider, address, the description, and then those credentials that are associated with the program that we added. And let's actually take a look at, maybe I'll look at Xion's, because that was one that we just added here. So let me do, oh, I wonder if it needs to be approved. I think it does. So let me just go back to this here. Um, And so we can see our, cohort information here when we view it. To add it, I'm actually going to go back to our project work plan. So yeah, let's see. So this was 2025 for community partnership. Quite a few here. Let me just take a look here. Plan starting from, so probably earlier in the year. Cohorts. Is that the one we want? I think it is. But we can add our cohorts here once our, yeah, it looks like once our plan is submitted, we can add the cohorts. So when we add the cohort, we can see, so let's see, cohort 6, 10, 26. Here's where we can, enter this cohort information. So then we can select the cohort type, the capacity, the start date. Let's see, I'll do June. The end date, make that a bit longer. And then the provider here. So these would be pulling from those training programs. And so let's say this one here, then we can add any additional notes here. We can click save. And we'll see that our cohort has been added here. And let's see, filter this again. Just want to make sure. Here we go. So yeah, here's the one that we've added. We can see the capacities pulling through here. To actually assign someone to a cohort, we have an update currently, this current round of updates that we're working on. I actually need to test it after our call here today. But we should have an update on that and how to assign the customers to cohorts. So there will be more on that very soon. And then with the cohort report too, see here if I do oops. So yeah, just looking at, well, there's not really anything populating for Zion. Let me go back to community partnership here. Yeah, we have our summary information here, but we can also run an export that will do an Excel download of the information in the table here. So if you wanted to view the data that way, you do that as well. All right, let's go back to our reports page. Let's see. So cohort report just went over. We'll open up the cost report over here since this is I think a very useful tool, especially for those wraparound services. So let's filter to CEJA and probably just pull everyone back. And then for service, this is going to pull in, you can look at any service that, your customers have, but we're going to want to look at a wraparound support. And so then we can see all the customers who have a wraparound support service. And so if we're looking at Daisy here, this first customer listed, so we can see there's 3 rows here with different costs entered. So we have the public transit fare cards, childcare stipend. We have our dollar amounts, the quantity, the actual and the estimate. And this is actually, I know I mentioned it earlier with the dashboard, the cost estimates. You can use this report to, specifically, better identify which cost entered on which service is the one that is an estimate. Because it would say, estimate here. Let me just filter this here. We're gonna do it again. So yeah, then we can see, for Troy specifically, it's this, first month rent is an estimate along with the relocation. And so we see that it's an estimate and we can directly go to it with this pencil icon. Open this up in a new tab here. And then we can see, he's got a lot, 25 different costs entered, but it was the first month rent. Click edit, say no. Maybe that was in fact the exact amount, as was the relocation cost, which I can also update over here. Then when I save this, come back here, we'll see for Troy that he's no longer going to show up as a estimate. Yeah, we just have this one who is Jerry. So that's a good way to, if you want to just go to this directly to see if you have any cost estimates and specifically which ones, you can do so here. But yeah, a good way to, quickly access and manage, any cost information. And this also has an export too that you can pull into an Excel and view all of that information there. Okay, let's see. Next we have customer service report. If we open up this, let me filter to CEJA and then community partnership and just click filter here. So this is pulling back a table of all services that at least one customer has in community partnership. And we can see a list of services, in each row, and the columns, what they're indicating. The service level, I'm actually not sure what that is supposed to indicate. I think that's supposed to be the category or type that it is, if it's a training service, support, transition, and so forth, but that might just not be pulling through. So we can ignore this column right here for now. But these other columns here, not started, started, completion, unsuccessful completion, evaluated, not required. This is just going to show below how many customers have this service and that status. So we're going to see one customer who has the assistance with completing an apprenticeship program application service with the status of started. So if we click this one here, we'll see who that is. We see it's Dante right here. And we can, and let me find a different one here. There's a few more numbers. Okay, let's just do this too. So financial literacy, this is still the column for started. So if we click this, we'll see our two customers, Dante and Daniel. And let's say that they were completed. So what we can do through this drop down here is, if we needed to update the dates or the weekly hours, we could do so here. And we can say, and maybe those are the right dates and the right hours. They're no longer started open, but they're complete. We can, oops, we need to enter the end date. That is important to have. So we'll enter the end date as well, and we'll click save. We'll see that they've updated and they're no longer here because when we filter this, they're going to move to this next column over here, which is successful completion. So let's pull that back. And this was financial literacy. That's now 0. And this went from 1 to 3. So if you need to, update services, a lot of services at once, you can use this to also just see, specifically who, where customers are with their services and, what status they have. And we also have these two columns at the end. So this is indicating total customers with this service, 1, 3, 1. But then if there's also, maybe there's, you're not quite sure if you have, 100, let's say you had, 200, customers in your, customer list, and they all need, let's see, they all need alumni networking. So we can see, 108 here. That's going to pull back. What we can do here is we can say, let's get them added. Let's add that service to their career plan. And so we can enter the status. They're now started open. We'll enter the start date and the planned end date and our weekly hours. And we'll click save. And though there's 108 here, we have 4, but that's okay. It's not all or nothing to update them. We can, choose from our list here which ones to update. So when we filter this again, we'll see some change here in these two columns, these two numbers. So we went from 1 to 5 for having alumni networking, and then down to 104 for customers who don't. So you can also use this report just to get a sense of, just making sure that all your customers have the right service. And I will say too, if you don't see a service in this table, then that means it hasn't been added to any customer's career plan, at least not yet. So that is a helpful tool that is available. And that's the customer service report. Right, our next report that we'll go over is the Climate Works report for the demographics. And I think this might be one I might have to change my environment in. Yes, okay, so I will go to, we're in UAT, I'll go to test, and hopefully we can get through this without a programmer pushing out an update and kind of holding this environment up for a few minutes. So, okay, let me go to our reports, logged in as climate works, demographic reports. Okay. So let me select our grantee here. So community partnership, and we can see if we had sub-grantees, they'll appear in the dropdown, but we'll just pull everything back. We can also filter by time frame. So we have, since the very beginning of the program. We can also filter by calendar year and quarter, or the entire calendar year. And then we also have the option for custom start and end dates. But we'll select all. And then for the section here, we have in this report, there's different sections. There's one for enrollment, one for training completion, and one for apprenticeship placement. And if we, let's go ahead and click all performance measures. That'll pull back 3 of those that I just mentioned. So when we click search, the system will load this table here. And so we can see this is the demographics and enrollment section. In our first column, we have the demographic. So here's just first off the number of number of customers we have. This second column, these are those who have a status of applicant. And then this last one here is the column for the number of customers who are enrolled. So with that in mind, we can go down the line here. We can see the demographics we have for race and the different available options that we've entered on the application or during intake. And so we can see here's the number of customers who have applied that meet this criteria in the line here, and then here's the 2 that are enrolled. And so we have race, gender, age, veteran status, and equity eligible community status. And we also have percentages of, so you can kind of get that at a glance and see how those numbers are. And then in our next one, we have training completion. It's the same demographic, lines that we just went through: race, gender, age, veteran status, and equity eligible community status. But then this is looking at specifically the number of individuals who have completed training. And we got 17 here. And of course, since this is a hyperlinked list, we can select that and it will display our 17 who, let's see, we have a status of completed or exited right here. So we do have that pulling through. And then the last section is for apprenticeship placement. Again, same demographics there, but then this is looking at the number of graduates who have been placed in construction and building trades apprenticeships. And so we pulled back everyone, but we can also, if we just wanted to look at one of those specific performance measures, we can do that as well. Oops. And we can also run an export of this and download the information as well. So that was the demographics report for ClimateWorks. We also have that report for navigators, returning residents, workforce hubs. Okay, our next report, actually, let me go back to our UAT environment. Our next report is the narrative report. So let me open that up here. And we'll select community partnership and click search. Okay, so in our narrative report, we don't have anything for 2026, so let's go ahead and add that. So if we click add report, we'll pull up this window here. We'll see add monthly and quarterly update, provide a narrative update regarding the activity that occurred over the last quarter, include summary information for all applicable categories. All information from the narrative must be entered in the text boxes below. And we have different text boxes here in the description for summary of the grant progress, activities, barriers and technical assistance needs, accomplishments and success stories. expected accomplishments for the next month and quarter, and additional information. And so to enter this, what we'll need to do, we'll need to select a calendar year, and let's say 2026 because we haven't entered anything yet. And we'll select quarter one, and we can also select which month that we are entering the narrative for. So let's say this is for January. And then here we can enter in the narrative portion of it. So here is the summary of our progress for community partnership. January 2026. You can enter that there for section 1. And then section 2, I'll just enter the same thing here. So we'll need to enter that for different sections in this window here. We also have a link to the success stories. We can submit a success story there, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So once we have our different sections filled out, we can click Save, get the prompt from the system that has been submitted. And then in 2026, we can see what we've submitted for quarter 1 when we click View. Yeah, we don't see it, but don't worry. We have, if we click Show January, we can see the text that we've entered in each section for January. And then right below that, we can see February. So then this is, where we'd enter the monthly narrative portion for February. So let me enter that here. February. And when we click Save, come back here, we can click View, and then we now see Show January and Show February. And we can enter in the March narrative here as well. So that's how that works and functions. We can also run an export, which will look at, so it would pull back all of this, but then since we have January and February entered here, those would be distinguished in the Excel. So it wouldn't be just what you see in the table. It would also pull back everything that's been entered in these different text boxes and sections there. All right, going back to our reports page, success stories, we'll go over in a second. Work plan, I think that was we went over that. I know we have the plan versus actual. We'll get to that next. Yeah, we'll go to the plan versus actual, which we can access through this tab up here, or the dashboard drop down here, plan versus actual. Either way, it'll take us to the same place. And from here, we'll just make our filter selections. And we have the option to look at specific time frames, so we can pull back all from the beginning. Got our calendar year and quarter selection again, along with our custom start and end dates. And so let me click all and filter. And this will pull back our table. And we have this broken out. So we have our activities and outcomes, how many customers, fall or, items, maybe in this case, events or partners, how many meet that row's criteria for the previous quarter, the number planned and number actual, plan being, what was entered on the project work plan, and then number actual, how many are actually meeting that based on the time frame we selected. And so for some of these, we have our outreach events delivered. We can see our numbers here. If we click this hyperlink text, that will just kind of break down, how that's, being calculated exactly. So here are the different outreach event types. For partner types, we can see our breakdown here as well. And our hyperlinked list, and like all of our other reports, if we click 208, this will pull back a list of customers, 208. They won't be all inquiry, but it would, since they were inquiry at one point, picture that as, your total number of customers added, regardless of status there. Service delivery. So then we have, applicants enrolled, how many have complete. So you can see how many meet those last quarter, what was in our plan, and how many, who specifically is meeting that criteria. So that's service delivery characteristics. This will pull in from what we entered during intake. For the transition outcomes here, we do have, let's see, so this is Climate Works. We're looking at registered apprenticeship programs, so we can see how many have applied, how many are waitlist, how many are placed. And if we click R3 here, we can see transition outcome. Here are 3. So if we go to our first example here and go to their program completion, let's see, this was for placed. Okay, so when we look at our apprenticeship outcome, we can see that this is placed. So what we select, just in case you see anyone like, well, why are they applied, but they should be under placed. If you go to their program completion tab in the outcome, like we've done here, take a look at what was selected in this apprenticeship status dropdown. And when we update this, then it would be updated over here. And then we also have, let's see here, we can see, the names of those apprenticeship programs for those who, fall under here. And let's see, we do have, and this did come up earlier this week, when we have, unavailable listed here for, let's see, in this case, wrap retention, job retention. So the retention, that just means that it's not been developed and set up yet. Not that there's necessarily an issue with the system not pulling it through. It just hasn't been programmed yet. So we'll need to get that programmed. And then let's see, after our registered apprenticeship programs, we have job placements. So job placements in construction, building, clean energy employment. You can see the names of those employers here that we entered on our transition outcome. And then advanced training placements in clean energy. Again, we can see the names of those providers. And then our last one, job placements outside of the construction, building, trade, clean energy employment. And when we click this, this will show the names of those employers. Let's see, we can also run an export of our table here. That will pull back in Excel, and I think that's about it for the plan versus actual success stories. That was the only other thing I wanted to note. So success stories. When we click this, this will take us to our success story guide. I think we'll be able to get too far since we don't have a test environment for success stories. We only have production, and I don't want to potentially show, actual people's data or information. So, but for success stories, this is our guide here. We have some information, a presentation that was given on the success story tool. We have our different audiences here for submitting a success story, which you would need a workNet account for, which I think would pretty much be everybody, whether they're a participant, employer, or service provider. So if it's a customer, they can log in and submit the story themselves. If it was an employer, they could do so as well. I feel like for the most part, the service providers, the grantees or navigators submitting on behalf of a customer. And we'll have the link here that would, let's see, let me open this in a new tab. So we have the link here where when this opens, we can then select what type of story we're submitting. And I do want to note, community story is specifically for the Apprenticeship Illinois program, not CEJA, so don't select a community story when submitting them. But for customer story, if we click search here, this is where we can enter, their workNet username in the system. We can add that here and click search, or we can enter their name as it appears, with their account and search there. And then when we do that, that would show a list of customers you have access to, and you can select them and continue to the form for submission. If you don't see them, we just have a note here. You can contact info@illinoisworknet.com with the participant's name and program name, and then we'll do some troubleshooting there. But the actual form itself, I think if I were to, I might be able to do a little bit of a workaround. Okay, so yeah, it would show, participant info, so name, address, information here, story info. We can select our program here for CEJA or FEJA, and then populate our organization information in here. For success story title, we'll just give the success story a name, and then here in the success story, we can enter the narrative portion of that. And we are limited to 5,000 characters. And then you can upload a image if the customer agrees to have a photo of themselves, that they are open to having this organization publicly on the website. That can be added in there. If not, you can just use your organization's logo. That's perfectly acceptable too. And then we'll just check the box for accepting the terms of agreement and click Save Story. And we do have staff that reviews the submitted success stories on a weekly basis, so they shouldn't be out there, pending for very long. So those would get approved. And then down below this section where we can enter or make our selection of the type of success story we're submitting. We have just tips on best practices, writing and submitting success stories, and also some individual one-page handouts specifically for audience. So if it was for a customer or for an employer, that is available here as well. All right, going back to our system here. Just taking a look. Okay. Now I've been talking for a while. I think that's all I wanted to cover on reports. I know we got about 10 minutes left, so I'll go ahead and open it up to any questions about reports or anything else in the CEJA reporting system. All right, if not, I'll go ahead and check with Diana and Nate to see if there's anything they'd like to share or ask the group.
Nothing else from me today. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Nate.
Yeah, just want to remind everybody that there's a webinar at 1 with CJI talking about some of the research they've done with the job inventory. So if anybody's available, feel free to register for that and jump on that call. I think it'll be useful for the grantees. Otherwise, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. All right, any other last last minute questions before we close today? All right. Well, if not, we'll go ahead and end our call. I will get our recording posted to the partner guide here. And of course, if anything comes up, just send us an email or a help request and we'll go from there. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
David.
Bye-bye.
Bye.